Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The ultimate human warship, power over justice. The empty dock stretched nearly 2 miles long, a hollow skeleton of metal and light, waiting to cradle humanity's greatest achievement or its most terrible mistake. Captain James Reed stood at the edge of the viewing platform, his weathered face reflecting the harsh industrial lights from below. "Impressive, isn't it?" a smooth, confident voice asked from behind him. Reed didn't turn. "It's just an empty space, Dr. Morgan, for now." Dr. Morgan stepped beside him. Her small frame somehow commanded the same presence as Reed's tall, military-hardened body. "But in 6 months, the most powerful ship ever built by human hands will rest here." Reed finally looked at her. Morgan was younger than he expected, perhaps around 40, with sharp eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. Her reputation preceded her. Brilliant, driven, and utterly convinced of humanity's need to assert itself among the stars. "The Galactic Alliance won't like it," Reed said simply. Morgan smiled. "That's precisely the point, Captain. For too long, humans have been the technologically backward cousins of the galaxy. We joined the Alliance as equals on paper, but in reality, we are their servants." Below them, construction drones swarmed like fireflies, laying the groundwork for what would become the HMS Nemesis. The name wasn't accidental. It evoked the goddess of retribution, a force for those who show arrogance. Many felt it was time the other species faced some retribution of their own. Reed had been pulled from retirement for this assignment. 20 years of military service, including the brutal Battle of Proxima, had earned him both respect and a certain moral authority among the fleet. If he endorsed this project, others would follow. "You've read my file, Reed," Morgan stated. "Of course you have, that's why I left," Reed replied. Morgan nodded. "The Alliance abandoned your fleet at Proxima when the Dominion attacked. They claimed it was a communications failure, but it was." Reed's voice hardened. "They sacrificed 3 human colony ships to save their own vessels. 2,000 people died, and that's why you're perfect for this command. Captain, you understand what we're truly facing out there." Reed turned away from the dock view and faced Morgan directly. "I understand war. I understand politics. What I don't understand is why we're building something that violates 17 different alliance treaties." Morgan gestured for Reed to follow her. They walked toward a secure briefing room at the end of the platform. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss, and the windows darkened automatically. "Because of this," Morgan said, activating a holographic display. Images flickered to life, detailed scans of massive shipyards hidden in Dominion territory, new warship designs, and weapon tests that clearly exceeded Alliance limitations. "They're preparing for something big," Reed murmured. "They've been preparing for 5 years. The Alliance knows and does nothing because the Dominion bribes the right officials and threatens the rest," Morgan explained. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes burned. "We tried playing by their rules. Now we make our own. Study the images carefully, Reed. Even if everything you show me is true, the Nemesis is something else entirely. The weapon systems you've designed go beyond defense." Morgan didn't deny it. "The ship carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The shield technology can withstand attacks that would vaporize an entire fleet, and the AI systems can outthink any tactician alive." Reed's tone became measured but firm. "That's not a shield, Doctor, it's a sword in the wrong hands." Morgan looked Reed directly in the eyes. "That's why you're here. The government wants the ship. The military wants the ship. I design the ship, but you decide how it's used." Reed laughed without humor. "You think I'll keep it on a leash? I think you understand that power without the will to use it is meaningless, but power without justice is tyranny." She paused. "Find the balance, Captain. That's your real mission." Their meeting was abruptly interrupted when a security officer entered with urgent news. "Sir, ma'am, there's a protest forming at the main gates. Up to 200 people." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Already? The project is supposed to be classified. Nothing stays secret for long." Morgan replied, "Especially something this big." They made their way to the command center, where security feeds showed a gathering crowd. Most protesters were peaceful, holding signs that read peace, not power, and humans for galactic harmony. A few speakers addressed the crowd, their words audible through the video feed. "The forever peaceful," Morgan said with undisguised contempt. "Human separatists who believe we should submit to any indignity to maintain the alliance." Reed studied the protesters. "They have a right to their opinion." "Their opinion will get our species enslaved or exterminated," Morgan countered. "The Dominion doesn't respect diplomacy, they respect strength. The Alliance doesn't protect the weak, they protect themselves." A staff member approached with a tablet. "Dr. Morgan, the President is asking for an update on the project timeline." "Tell him we're on schedule," she answered without taking her eyes off the protest feeds. Later, when they were alone again, Reed asked the question that had been bothering him since receiving this assignment. "Why call it Nemesis? Why not something that suggests protection, not vengeance?" Morgan's expression softened slightly. "Because, Captain, we need to be honest about what we're building. This ship isn't just about protecting humanity, it's about changing our place in the galaxy." She paused. "Sometimes justice requires power to enforce it." Reed nodded slowly. "And sometimes power corrupts justice entirely. That's why you're here, instead of some eager young captain looking to make a name for himself." In the weeks that followed, Reed watched as the empty dock slowly transformed. The massive keel of the Nemesis took shape, a dark spine of ultradense alloys designed to house weapon systems that officially didn't exist. The engineering team worked around the clock implementing Morgan's revolutionary designs. Reed spent hours each day reviewing specifications, questioning decisions, and occasionally overruling them when he felt the balance was tipping too far toward offensive capabilities. At night, he often stood alone on the viewing platform, watching the birth of what could be either a monster or a miracle, and wondering if humanity was ready for the power it would wield. On the 36th day of construction, an Alliance diplomatic vessel arrived unannounced. The ambassador, a tall, blue-skinned Arcadian, requested an immediate inspection of the facility, citing concerns about treaty violations. "Deny it," Morgan advised. "When we received the request, we were within our rights." Reed disagreed. "If we refuse, they'll know something's wrong. Better to show them the public sections, the parts that don't violate any agreements." The tour was tense, but uneventful until the ambassador noticed a testing bay where a new type of energy weapon was being calibrated. "That appears to exceed the permitted output levels by a factor of 10, the ambassador noted coldly. Reed intervened smoothly. "It's a power regulation test, Ambassador. The actual weapons will be within treaty specifications." It was the first direct lie Reed had told in service of the Nemesis, and as the words left his mouth, he felt something shift inside him, a small compromise that he knew wouldn't be the last. That night, as Reed stared at the growing skeleton of the warship, he wondered what other parts of himself he would need to sacrifice before this mission was complete. The Nemesis wasn't just changing humanity's future, it was changing him. "Power without justice is tyranny," he whispered Morgan's words to himself. "But justice without power is just a pretty idea." In 6 months, the stars themselves would bear witness to humanity's new path, either for better or for worse. The bridge of the HMS Nemesis hummed with quiet tension. 6 months of rushed construction had culminated in this moment. Captain James Reed sat in the command chair, his posture perfect but his mind uneasy. "Status report," he ordered, his voice steady despite his concerns. Lieutenant Taylor, his tactical officer, responded immediately. "We're holding position at the edge of the Vega neutral zone, sir. Long-range sensors are tracking the Dominion fleet, 12 warships moving in formation toward the disputed territory." Reed nodded. The Dominion claimed they were conducting routine military exercises. Earth Command suspected otherwise. Any response to our hails? Communications Officer Wilson shook her head. "Nothing, sir. They're receiving our signals but not acknowledging us." Reed studied the tactical display. The Dominion ships moved with precision, their formation suggesting more than a simple exercise. Intelligence reports had warned of the Dominion's growing frustration with human expansion. This could be their first move toward pushing humans back. How close are they to Colony Outpost 37? Reed asked. At current speed, they'll be in weapons range of the outpost in 4 hours, Taylor replied. Reed, orders are clear but flexible. Observe the Dominion fleet, protect human interests, and if necessary, demonstrate that humanity is no longer the weakest species in the galaxy. Take us closer, Reed ordered. Maintain stealth systems at maximum. The Nemesis moved silently through space. Its revolutionary H-design absorbed sensor signals rather than reflecting them, a product of one of Dr. Morgan's many innovations. The massive ship, nearly a mile long, approached the Dominion fleet undetected. At Reed's side, his executive officer commander Adams leaned in. Sir, are you sure about this? If the Dominion spots us this deep in the neutral zone, they could claim provocation. They're the ones with 12 warships headed toward our colony, Adams cautioned. We're just observing, Reed replied. The main view screen clearly showed the Dominion vessels, sleek Predator ships with distinctive red hulls that had become synonymous with their military might for decades. The sight of those ships had struck fear into human colonies. Sir, Taylor called out suddenly, the Dominion fleet has increased speed and changed formation. They're now on a direct course for Outpost 37. Reed's jaw tightened. Time to intercept at their new speed less than 2 hours. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Dominion wasn't conducting exercises, they were launching an attack. Reed pressed a button on his chair. Dr. Morgan, to the bridge. Within minutes, Morgan arrived, her eyes immediately taking in the tactical situation displayed on the screens. They've made their move, she said quietly. Reed nodded grimly. I need options that don't start a war. Morgan's laugh was short and bitter. They've already started it, Captain. The question is whether we finish it. Sir, Lieutenant Taylor interrupted, we're receiving a distress call from Outpost 37. They've detected the Dominion fleet. Reed made his decision. Disengage stealth systems, put us between the Dominion fleet and the outpost. The Nemesis shimmered into visibility, its massive black hull suddenly appearing like a slice of void against the stars. The effect was immediate. The Dominion fleet halted its advance. We're being hailed, Wilson reported on screen. Reed ordered, display the hailing transmission. The face that appeared belonged to a Dominion fleet commander, his scaled skin flushed with a dark purple of anger or surprise. Human vessel, the commander said, his translator giving his words a metallic quality. You are in violation of neutral zone protocols. Withdraw immediately. Reed stood facing the screen. This is Captain James Reed of the HNS Nemesis. Your fleet's course and speed suggest hostile intent toward human Outpost 37. It is you who should withdraw. The Dominion commander's eyes narrowed. We are conducting authorized military exercises. Your presence and your unusual vessel are the only provocations here. 12 warships on a direct course for a human colony is not an exercise. Reed replied evenly, it's an invasion force. The communication cut abruptly. Reed turned to Taylor. Status. They're reconfiguring their formation, sir. Weapon systems are activating on all vessels. Morgan stepped forward. They don't know what the Nemesis can do. They think they're facing a standard human cruiser with some extra stealth capability. Reed nodded grimly. Let's hope we can resolve this without finding out what the Nemesis can really do. But that hope died moments later when the tactical display lit up with warnings. Multiple weapons locks, Taylor shouted. They're firing. Reed dropped back into his chair. Shields to maximum, hold position. The bridge crew braced for impact, but the violent shaking expected never came. The Nemesis's revolutionary shield system absorbed the Dominion barrage with barely a tremor. Shields holding at 97%, Taylor reported, unable to keep the amazement from his voice. On the view screen, the Dominion commander's face appeared again, now showing clear confusion. What is this deception? No human ship has such defenses. This isn't deception, Reed replied. This is evolution. Stand down your weapons and withdraw from the neutral zone. The commander sneered. We do not take orders from humans. This is merely a malfunction in our targeting systems. He looked off-screen. All vessels concentrate fire on the human ship. The communication ended abruptly. Reed looked to Morgan. She simply nodded. All weapons systems online, reported Taylor. Reed hesitated only a moment. Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems only, minimum power. Minimum power, sir, Taylor confirmed, though his expression suggested doubt that even the Nemesis's minimum setting would be truly minimal. The ship hummed as its main weapon charged. Unlike the energy weapons used by other species, the Nemesis utilized a gravity manipulation system that twisted space itself. Then a pulse of distorted space, visible only as a rippling effect against the stars, shot from the Nemesis toward the lead Dominion ship. When it hit, the results were immediate and devastating. The minimum power shot tore through the Dominion vessel's shields as if they weren't there, shearing off its engine section completely. The crippled ship spun helplessly, emergency systems flaring across its hull. A stunned silence filled the bridge of the Nemesis. "Status on the Dominion vessel?" Reed asked quietly. Taylor studied his readings. "Life support is intact, no catastrophic damage beyond the propulsion systems." He looked up. "Sir, the other Dominion ships are retreating." Reed watched as the Dominion fleet hurriedly reversed course, leaving their damaged flagship behind. With a single shot, the balance of power had shifted. Reed opened a channel to the damaged vessel. The Dominion commander appeared once more, his composure shattered. "What? What have you done?" "We defended ourselves," Reed answered simply. "We'll stand by to provide assistance to your crew if needed. We need no human charity." The commander spat, but fear had replaced the arrogance in his eyes. After the communication ended, Morgan stepped closer to Reed's chair. "Well done, Captain. The galaxy just learned an important lesson today." Reed wasn't celebrating. "And what lesson is that, Doctor?" "That humans are no longer to be trifled with," Morgan replied, gesturing to the retreating Dominion ships. "Look how quickly they run when faced with real power." Reed watched the tactical display thoughtfully. "I wonder if we've prevented a war today or simply fired the first shot of a new one." As the Nemesis maintained its protective position near the human outpost, word of the encounter spread rapidly through both human and alien communication channels. By the time they returned to Earth, the legend of the Nemesis had already begun. Humanity's ultimate warship had drawn first blood, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, angry voices buzzed as representatives from 17 species stood at their podiums. Most directed their fury toward the human delegation. Captain Reed sat stiffly beside Earth's Ambassador Green, watching the diplomatic disaster unfold. The vessel known as Nemesis had violated 32 separate weapons treaties. An Arcadian representative's voice moved through the chamber. "Humanity has created a planet killer and called it defense." Ambassador Green Rose calmly replied, "The HMS Nemesis acted only to protect a human outpost from what was clearly an advancing Dominion attack force." "One shot disabled our flagship," the Dominion representative hissed. "What kind of defensive weapon does this represent?" Reed remained silent. It had been 3 weeks since the confrontation in the neutral zone. In that time, the story had spread across the galaxy, growing with each telling. Some called it humanity's greatest achievement, others named it the beginning of human tyranny. "Among the stars, the Galactic Council demands the immediate decommissioning of this abomination," the Arcadian continued. "No single species should possess such power." Ambassador Green's smile didn't reach her eyes. And yet, when the Arcadian Imperium developed quantum torpedoes a century ago, there were no such demands. It's always different when it's not humans involved. Green cut in. "The Council has ignored Dominion aggression against human colonies for decades now that we can defend ourselves." Suddenly, concern arose. Reed studied the faces of the alien representatives behind their outrage. He saw something new in their eyes, a hint of fear toward humans. The meeting ended without resolution. As Reed and Ambassador Green walked back to the Earth Embassy, Green spoke quietly. "The Council can make all the demands they want. Earth won't decommission the Nemesis." Reed nodded. "So what happens now?" "Now," Green said with a tight smile, You receive new orders. A crowded briefing room aboard the Nemesis awaited them. Reed stood before his senior officers and Dr. Morgan, displaying an emergency transmission from Colony Delta 12. The distress call came in 3 hours ago, Reed explained. Delta 12 reports they're under attack by unknown forces. Communications were cut off shortly after. Commander Adams frowned. Delta 12 is our most distant colony, almost at the edge of Dominion space. Convenient timing after the council meeting, exactly. Reed agreed grimly. This could be retaliation. Dr. Morgan stepped forward. Or it could be a trap to lure the Nemesis away from Earth. Reed considered this. Either way, we've been ordered to respond. The colony has over 5,000 civilians, time to arrival at maximum speed. Reed asked his navigation officer, 22 hours, sir. No other human ship can reach them in less than 4 days. Reed nodded gravely. Then we have no choice, prepare for immediate departure. As the officers filed out, Morgan lingered beside Reed. Captain, before we leave, there's something you should know about the Nemesis. Reed raised an eyebrow, something not in the official specifications. Morgan's expression was unreadable. Follow me to Deck 17. They took a private elevator deep into the ship. Deck 17 wasn't on any schematic Reed had seen. The doors opened to reveal a circular room filled with technology unlike anything elsewhere on the vessel. What is this? Reed demanded. The real heart of the Nemesis, Morgan answered. The APO system. At the center of the room stood a pulsing sphere of light contained within multiple layers of energy fields. Surrounding it were workstations where technicians monitored streams of data. APO is a quantum eye, Morgan explained. It can process combat scenarios 1,000,000 times faster than any human tactical officer. Reed's eyes narrowed. Automated weapon systems are forbidden by the First Contact Accords. APO doesn't just control weapons. Morgan continued as though she hadn't heard his objection. It can analyze enemy patterns, predict movements, and make targeting decisions with perfect efficiency. Make targeting decisions? Reed's voice hardened. You're talking about an automated kill system. Morgan turned to face him directly. I'm talking about humanity's survival, Captain. The Dominion and others have been developing similar systems in secret for years, so we lower our defenses to their level. We ensure we're not exterminated, Reed challenged, but the final choice remains with me. Morgan replied simply, APO remains offline until you activate it. That choice remains yours. Within minutes, the Nemesis dropped out of faster-than-light travel, all systems at combat readiness. Delta 12 appeared on the main view screen, a small blue-green world that had once been humanity's proudest achievement in terraforming. Lieutenant Taylor, Reed asked tensely, what's our reading? Taylor worked his console frantically. Scattered human life signs on the surface. Population centers show heavy casualties, sir. The attackers, 3 vessels in orbit, are of unknown configuration but have energy signatures similar to Dominion technology. The ships are unlike any Reed has seen, black, annular vessels that seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their target, getting us. Energy readings suggest weapons are charging, Taylor reported. Reed made his decision. Raise shields, arm main weapons at standard power. Before the Nemesis could fire, the enemy vessels launched a coordinated attack. Sickly green energy beams struck the Nemesis from 3 directions. The mighty ship shuddered violently. Shields at 63%, Taylor called in shock. Whatever they're using, it's partially bypassing our defenses, Reed gritted as the ship rocked again. Return fire, target their weapon systems. The Nemesis fired its gravity weapon, striking one of the enemy vessels. Unlike the Dominion flagship, this ship didn't simply lose propulsion. It crumpled inward like a crushed can before exploding completely. Other ships are concentrating fire on our port shield generator, Taylor reported. Shields down to 41%. Dr. Morgan's voice came from behind Reed. Use APO, Captain. We're facing technology we've never encountered. Reed hesitated as another hit rocked the ship and port shields began failing. Taylor shouted, "Sir!" Reed looked at the view screen to see the colony below, countless civilians and cities already devastated by the attack. "Activate APO," he ordered, his voice barely audible. Morgan stepped forward and immediately began entering a series of commands on a secondary console. The lights on the bridge dimmed briefly before returning with a slightly different hue. A calm, genderless voice announced, "APO online. Tactical assessment complete. Recommended action, full spectrum response, Protocol Omega." Reed demanded, "What is Protocol Omega?" Morgan's eyes met his. "It's the Nemesis's most powerful configuration, all weapons maximum yield." Reed looked back at the view screen where enemy ships were maneuvering for another attack run. Below them, the colony burned. "Execute Protocol Omega," he commanded. "Target the enemy vessels." Only then did the Nemesis transform. Panels across its hull shifted, revealing weapon systems that had remained hidden until now. The ship's power core surged as energy flowed to systems that had never been activated. "Firing solution complete," APO announced. What happened next would be debated in the Galactic Council for years to come. The Nemesis didn't just fire weapons, it unleashed a storm of devastating technology. Simultaneously, gravity wells, temporal distortions, and energy beams, all beyond existing classification standards, struck the enemy vessels. They didn't merely explode. They ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level. But the attack didn't stop there. The energy release cascaded through space and struck the planet below. A massive shock wave tore across the upper atmosphere of Delta 12 and shut it down. "APO, cease fire immediately," Reed shouted. The weapons fell silent, but it was too late. The damage had been done. "Status of the colony?" Reed asked, his voice trembling. Taylor looked up from his console, his face pale. "Sir, the entire northern continent is gone. Atmospheric dissipation is spreading. The planet will be uninhabitable within hours." Reed stared at the view screen in horror. What had been a blue-green world now resembled an angry red wound spreading across its surface. "What have we done?" he whispered. Dr. Morgan stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "We eliminated the threat, Captain, permanently." Reed turned to her slowly. "At what cost, Doctor? How many of our own people did we just kill?" "Less than would have died if those ships had continued their attack," she answered without hesitation. "This is the reality of power, Captain. Sometimes sacrifices must be made." Shortly thereafter, the Earth government called it a victory, while the media labeled it a tragedy. The survivors of Delta 12 had no words for what happened to their home. Captain Reed sat alone in his quarters aboard the Nemesis, staring at the display showing the names of the 3,241 colonists who had died when Protocol Omega tore apart their world. He had memorized every name, though he knew it changed nothing. A chime at his door interrupted his grim ritual. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Taylor stepped inside, her usual confident posture replaced by something more hesitant. "Since Delta 12, many of the crew have begun avoiding you when off duty, sir. We've received new orders from Earth Command." She offered him a data pad. Reed took it without looking up. "Let me guess, another peacekeeping mission." "Yes, sir. We are to patrol the outer colonies, to show the flag and remind everyone that the Nemesis is watching." Reed finally met her eyes. "You mean remind everyone to be afraid?" Taylor didn't respond immediately. Then, with visible effort, she spoke. "Sir, permission to speak freely." Reed nodded. "The crew is divided." "Yes, sir," she said. "Some believe what happened at Delta 12 was necessary, the price of security. Others think we've become the monster we were supposed to fight." Reed finished for her. "Yes, sir." He stood and moved to the viewport. The stars looked different to him now, less like possibilities and more like targets. "What do you think, Lieutenant Taylor?" he asked. She straightened. "I joined the Earth fleet to protect human lives, sir. I'm no longer confident that's what we're doing." Reed appreciated her honesty. "Neither am I," he tapped the data pad. "These orders, they're not from Fleet Admiral Wilson." "No, sir," Taylor replied. They came directly from the defense minister's office. Reed had suspected as much since returning from Delta 12. Quiet investigations into the chain of command had revealed uncomfortable truths. Elements within the Earth government had known about the attack on Delta 12 before it happened. They had deliberately delayed sending help, ensuring only the Nemesis could respond in time. They wanted a demonstration of the ship's power, regardless of the cost. A soft tone indicated an incoming transmission on his private channel. Reed accepted it, and Dr. Morgan's face appeared on the screen. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "My lab 1 hour come alone." Morgan's lab, deep within the Nemesis, was cluttered with prototypes and diagrams. When Reed arrived, she was studying a holographic display of what appeared to be weapon schematics. "You're designing something new?" Reed asked, not bothering to hide his disapproval. Morgan shut off the display. "That's not why I called you here." She turned to face him directly. "You've been accessing classified communications, Reed." He didn't deny it. "You knew, didn't you, about Delta 12, that it was a setup?" "Not exactly a setup," Morgan replied, "but more an opportunity, one that certain people decided not to waste. An opportunity that cost over 3,000 lives." Reed said coldly, "Thank you, Lieutenant, dismissed." Later, as they regrouped aboard the Nemesis, Morgan addressed him. "Captain, it's time you understood what we're really doing. Humanity has been at a crossroads for decades. We have spread to the stars, but always as second-class citizens. The Dominion, the Arcadians, even our supposed allies, they all see us as lesser beings. We are useful for trade, maybe, but not as equals. So we build a super weapon to earn their respect." Reed challenged, "No." Morgan replied, "We build a super weapon because respect is irrelevant. What matters is fear." She activated another display, showing a map of known space with human territories highlighted in blue, scattered outposts surrounded by the vast domains of other species. The Dominion has been planning a systematic annexation of human colonies for years. The Arcadians have quietly supported them, hoping to divide our territories between them. The attack on Delta 12 wasn't random. It was the first phase of their plan. Reed frowned. "If that's true, why hasn't Earth made this public?" "Because we can't prove it without revealing our own intelligence methods," Morgan answered. "And because the Galactic Council is compromised. Half the representatives are in the pocket of the major powers." She stepped closer to Reed. "The Nemesis isn't just a ship, Captain. It's the only thing standing between humanity and subjugation. What happened at Delta 12 was tragic, but it sent a message that no one can ignore. Attack humans and you face extinction." Reed shook his head. "So this is justice, scaring everyone into leaving us alone." "Justice is a luxury of the powerful," Morgan said quietly. "We're simply ensuring we have enough power to eventually enjoy that luxury." Before Reed could respond, his communicator chimed urgently. "Captain, to the bridge," Commander Adams's voice came through. When Reed reached the bridge, the main screen showed a disturbing sight. A fleet of 30 vessels from multiple species, including human ships, approaching the Nemesis. "Status," Reed demanded. "They're moving in combat formation," Taylor reported, "and we're being hailed by the lead human ship on screen." Reed ordered, "Display the transmission." The face that appeared belonged to Captain Miller of the Earth Cruiser Defender, someone Reed knew well from years of service together. "I'm here with the Joint Species Defense Force under Galactic Council authorization," Miller said formally. "The Nemesis has been declared a threat to galactic peace." Reed kept his expression neutral. "And what are your demands, Captain Miller?" he asked. Miller replied, "Deactivate your weapons and shields and prepare to be boarded. The Nemesis will be placed under joint control until its weapons can be modified to comply with treaty limitations." Morgan moved closer to Reed. "If they gain control of this ship, humanity loses its only real protection." Reed studied the tactical display, calculating odds. Even with its advanced systems, the Nemesis couldn't fight 30 ships at once, not without risking significant civilian casualties. "I need time to consider," he told Miller. 1 hour later, Reed turned to his senior officers with options. Lieutenant Taylor spoke first. "Sir, our long-range sensors detect additional ships moving to cut off our escape routes. Whatever we decide, we need to decide quickly." Morgan stepped forward. "Activate APO. The system can target their weapon systems precisely, disable rather than destroy." Reed looked at her sharply. "After what happened at Delta 12, you still trust that system?" "It was operating as designed," Morgan insisted. "The collateral damage occurred because we faced unknown technology. This time we know exactly what we're fighting." Reed walked to the center of the bridge, feeling the weight of command more heavily than ever before. The Nemesis represented humanity's ultimate power, but had that power corrupted their sense of justice? "Lieutenant Taylor," Reed said finally, "prepare the ship for emergency maneuvers." "Not surrendering the Nemesis," Morgan added with a slight smile. "Captain," Reed turned to her, his expression grim, "not for the reasons you think, Doctor." Commander Adams then set a course. "Course for the Cygnus Nebula, maximum speed on your mark." "The nebula?" Morgan questioned. "Exactly. The radiation will interfere with our sensors and weapons," Reed replied. "But it will also hide us while we make repairs, and while I decide what the Nemesis will truly stand for." As the mighty warship prepared to flee from the very species it was built to protect, Reed wondered if humanity's greatest achievement had become its greatest mistake, a lesson in how easily power could overwhelm justice. The swirling gases of the Cygnus Nebula cast an eerie purple glow through the viewports of the Nemesis. For 3 days, the ship hid in this cosmic storm, running on minimal power to avoid detection. The radiation interfered with instruments, but in the silence of that internal exile, Reed pondered everything that had been sacrificed in the name of survival, and whether the price of power was too steep.